Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Nafisa Noman with your top stories. Obama faces big month, trade Iran healthcare. Suicide bomb targets ancient Egyptian temple. Madagascar president denounces attempt to impeach him in constitutional coup. And New York prison break convicts on the run for days face high odds for capture. Now the details. This is a big month for President Obama. Between now and July 4th, he will likely learn the fate of a major trade deal with Asia, a landmark nuclear agreement with Iran, and his signature healthcare law. The president and his aides and lobbying Congress for legislation that would clear the way for the Asia trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. A bill for trade promotion authority would enable Obama and aides to put together a final deal and then submit it to Congress for a final up or down vote without amendments. Many of Obama's fellow Democrats are opposed, however, arguing that free trade sends U.S. jobs overseas. Congressional leaders hope for final votes by the July 4th holiday. June 30, meanwhile, is a self-imposed deadline for negotiators of the proposed Iran nuclear agreement. The U.S. and allies are offering to reduce sanctions on Iran if it agrees to give up the means to make nuclear weapons. Congressional Republicans and Israeli officials are highly skeptical that Iran would comply with such an agreement. The month's third big event is beyond Obama's control. A Supreme Court decision on the legality of certain subsidies within the 2010 health care law. The justices are expected to rule by the end of the month on the case that could severely undercut the reach of Obama's major domestic achievement. Obama sending 450 more troops to Iraq to fight ISIL. President Obama will send up to 450 more U.S. troops to Iraq to step up the training of the local forces as they battle the Islamic State, officials said Wednesday. This train advice and the assist mission builds on lessons learned during the past several months and is just one aspect of our commitment to support the Iraqi security forces, spokesman Jost Earnest said. Earnest said Obama has also ordered the experimental delivery of essential equipment and material to Iraqi forces seeking to reclaim territory captured by the Islamic State. In addition to the 450 new trainers, the plan calls for stopping the flow of foreign fighters into and out of both Iraq and neighboring Syria. Another goal is getting more Sunni Muslims, a minority in Shiite-dominated Iraq, to roll back the gains made by the Islamic State. The new order brings the overall U.S. troops level remaining in Iraq to around 3,550, the vast majority of them involved in some sort of training projects. The Iraqi government requested the U.S. troops advisors in part to reach out to Sunni population in the region, Army Call Steve Warren, a Pentagon spokesman said on Wednesday. The troops should begin that mission to 8 to 6 weeks. The troops will also advise the Iraqi 8th Division, Warren said. Some soldiers from that division fled Ramadi without fighting. They will be provided equipment including small arms and body armor, Warren said. The United States is also conducting bombing missions against Islamic State positions as well as providing aerial reconnaissance and intelligence gathering missions. Bush on campaign troubles, it's early. Jeb Bush has one message for those who wonder about his campaign staff's shakeup and his struggles in Republican polls. It's early, I don't read the polls, Bush told reporters Wednesday in Berlin, in the midst of Europe trip. It's fun to see them when you're winning, not so fun when you're not. It doesn't really matter though, he added. It's June, for crying out loud, so we've got a long way to go. The well-funded, high-profile Bush, who is basically locked in a tie with up to 5 Republican rivals if polls are to be believed, also spoke after aides announced this week that longtime Republican operative Denny Diaz would be his campaign manager. The job had been expected to go to veteran law strategist David Cohill, who will instead serve as chief strategist for early primary and caucus states. While the moves took many Republicans by surprise, Bush described them as merely organized changes reflecting the immensity of a presidential camp. "It's a pretty overwhelming challenge, and so I decided to kind of split up the duties," Bush said. And David has got great success in these early states, particularly Iowa. He also has a great strategic mind, and Danny's grinder. Bush, who is in Europe throughout the week, is expected to formally declare his presidential campaign on Monday in Miami. Suicide bomber targets ancient Egyptian's temple. A suicide bomber blew himself up Wednesday near the ancient temple of Karnak in Luxor, one of Egypt's most famous tourist attractions. Egyptian authorities said soon after the attack, police exchanged fire with two suspected Islamic militants who had arrived at the site with the suicide bomber killing both. Security officials told the Associated Press. The country's health ministry said 4 people, including 2 policemen, were wounded. Luxor government Mohammed Saider Badr told the news agency that the attack was an attempt to break into the temple of Karnak, and the attackers didn't make it in. He said no tourists were injured. Luxor, on the east bank of the River Nile and about 420 miles south of the capital Cairo, is visited by millions of tourists every year. It is on the site of Thebes, the capital of an ancient Egyptian empire at its height. The bombing comes a week after suspected Islamic militants opened fire near the Giza pyramids outside Cairo, killing 2 police officials. Wednesday's attack was the first in Luxor since November 1997, when Islamic militants fired on a tourist bus that was visiting the ancient Hatshepsut temple and killed 58 people. There was no immediate claim for responsibility for Wednesday's attack. Extremists in the Sinai Peninsula, where violence has increased since Islamic President Mohammed Morsi was overthrown in 2013, have targeted tourist attractions before. Madagascar president denounces attempt to impeach him as institutional coup. Madagascar's president defended himself today through the lawyers denouncing a recent vote to impeach him as an unattempted institutional coup d'etat. The country's parliament voted overwhelmingly 2 weeks ago to dismiss President Hairy Rajanarampimpano for alleged constitutional violations and general incompetence in the Indian Ocean state. But the president has challenged the legality of the lawmaker's decision, accusing his opponents of having bought the vote, and the Constitutional Court is accessing whether the impeachment processes can go ahead. Rajaнарампамpian's lawyers said today that lawmakers are not entitled to file a complaint against the president and therefore acted illegally. Hence, our qualifications of institutional coup d'etat, said one of the lawyers. Sahandra Rendermosta regarding the impeachment motion. He noted that lawmakers were already speculating about the replacement of the head of state by Jean-Max Rakatamanji, the current parliamentary speaker. The 5 lawyers for the lawmakers cited 7 constitutional violations by the president. 27 laws were not promulgated with strict deadlines, and 3 never enacted. They also highlighted the violent seizing of an opposition lawmaker's car and $74,000 in cash in the capital, Antananarivo. Officers used tear gas to disperse about 20 opposition lawmakers at the scene, who tried to halt the search by arguing that female lawmaker Lantaraktamango was protected under parliamentary immunity. Only lawyers, lawmakers, and journalists were admitted to the court hearing without cameras or recording devices. Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi welcomes Putin but mentions differences. Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi welcomed visiting Russian President Vladimir Putin today but offered no sign of breaking ranks with international partners over European Union sanctions against Moscow. 2 weeks before the EU is due to decide whether to extend economic sanctions over Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Renzi praised the traditional Italian-Russian friendship, but spoke of divergent positions on some issues. We are in a difficult international situation, not just on account of issues which do not unite but as also for issues which should see us ever more on the same side in a very complicated international scenario, starting with the global threat of terrorism, he said at a ceremony at the Milan Expo. Russia enjoys better relations with Italy than with most other EU countries. It regards Rome as a reluctant backer of sanctions and a leading proponent of dialogue with Moscow. Renzi, who meets Putin for talks today, made no explicit reference to the Ukraine crisis, but referred to the need to face challenges, both those that see us holding divergent positions as well as those that unite us. However, in a more consolatory vein, he said he was looking forward to attending the 2018 Soccer World Cup in Russia with the Italian team, implicitly ruling the Italy's involvement in any move to boycott the event over the corruption scandals which have shaken the global football body FIFA. Reacting to G7 criticism on Monday, the Kremlin said that there were nuances of opinion in the group of industrialized nations, an apparent reference to Italy, and Moscow has sought to exploit divisions over sanctions. New York prison break convicts on the run for days face high odds of capture. The two escaped inmates of a New York maximum security prison have far outlasted the typical jailbreak period, according to experts and corrections data, as state and federal authorities were hunting them for the fifth straight day today. Richard Matt, 48, and David Sweat, 34, escaped from Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, over the weekend, cutting through steel walls, squeezing through a steam pipe, and popping out of a manhole. Such elaborate escape schemes require equally detailed plans for fleeing the surrounding area and living life under the radar. That is where most fugitives fall short. In other New York State prison escapes, freedom lasted less than 6 hours for 60% of the 30 inmates who succeeded in fleeing in the last decade, according to data from the New York Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. The longest escape lasted just 3 days. Nationwide, the number of prison escapes has dropped sharply from 100 inmates per 10,000 in the 1980s to 1 per 10,000 today, Peterson said. He cited several reasons for the drop, including fewer furloughs that present less opportunity to flee, more secure housing, and more effective technologies for detecting escape, like motion sensors and surveillance systems. Matt, who has a history of escaping attempts from other lockups, was serving a sentence of 20 years to life. Sweat was serving a life sentence. While there are newer, more secure prisons in New York, he said, authorities faced with holding inmates who have already escaped one of the nation's most impregnable facilities that might consider the controversial policy of solitary confinement. Viewers, will take a short break. Stay with us. Moment with the headlines here. After India's cross-border raids against terrorists, Pakistan says we're not Myanmar. From household name to name, Sony charts a comeback. And Lionel Messi faces trial over 30 crore tax fraud. Welcome back. We're watching Millennium TV News and I am Nafisa Numan. After India's cross-border raids against terrorists, Pakistan says we're not Myanmar. Pakistan is not like Myanmar, Interior Minister Nisar Ali Khan said today, and warned India that his country cannot be cowed down by the threats from across the border. Mr. Khan's statement came in response to Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, Rajvardhan Singh Rathor's remark that military action in Myanmar to hit back at rebels who killed 18 soldiers in Manipur was a message to other countries. Mr. Rathor's comments were interpreted here as a warning to Pakistan. Mr. Khan said that it should be clear to India that Pakistan is not a country like Myanmar. Those having ill designs against Pakistan should listen carefully that our security forces are capable of matching response to any advertisement, he said. Mr. Khan said that Pakistan would never accept India hegemony and that the Indian leaders should stop daydreaming. He said that India's nefarious designs will not succeed in future like in the past. He also said that Pakistan cannot be cowed down by the threats from across the border. The minister said that he was disappointed at regular violation of the LOC and working boundary by the Indian Army and the India's refusal to start peace talks with Pakistan. 144 migrants repatriated from Myanmar go home. As many as 144 human trafficking victims headed for home yesterday, 2 days after they were repatriated from Myanmar. The Cox's Bazar District Administration finished the process of sending the victims home after completing legal formalities by 6:30 p.m. All the 144 left the temporary camp at Cox's Bazar Cultural Center. The Myanmar Border Guard Police on Monday handed over 150 trafficking victims, preliminarily identified as Bangladeshis, to Border Guard Bangladesh. Of them, 55 are from Narskindi. They were rescued by Myanmar Navy on May 21st while being trafficked to Malaysia on a boat. However, detectives identified 2 of the 150 victims as Rohingyas from Myanmar. They are Hamid Hossain, 26, and Mohammed Idris, 19. Hamid is a refugee registered at Kutupalang Rohingya refugee camp in Ukia Upazila of Cox's Bazar. Hailing is from Mongda from Myanmar. Idris had entered Bangladesh illegally several years ago and had been staying here ever since, said police. Law enforcement detained 25-year-old Sakir Ullah, suspecting him to be Rohingya. We will interrogate him further, said Tofail Ahmed, additional superintendent of police in Cox's Bazar. The detective branch of police also arrested 3 others among the 150. One of them is suspected trafficker Uzzol Hossain. The 2 other, Shafiul Islam of Kutubidia in Cox's Bazar and Saddam Hussein of Jishore. They're fugitive convicts in separate cases. The 6 arrestees were handed over to Cox's Bazar Sadar Motul Police Station yesterday. Muhammad Ali Hussain, Deputy Commissioner of Cox's Bazar, said police sent 120 victims home in buses. From household name to no name, Sony charts a comeback. Since late last year, tens of millions of consumers worldwide have purchased small, high-tech, and highly profitable cameras made by Sony Corporation, probably without even knowing it. The camera's sophisticated image sensors are tucked inside every new Apple iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and in some models made by Samsung. The sensors have boosted sales and profits in Sony's important devices until and are a centerpiece of a new strategy that the long-suffering electronics giant hopes will return to it in financial health. Sony was once known for creating iconic products such as Trin TVs and Walkman portable audio players that dominated their market category. Now it's no longer insists on stamping its name on every product, fighting for market share on maintaining popular but money-losing products. The priority now is profitability. Sony was once known for creating iconic products such as Trinitron TVs and Walkman portable audio players that dominated their market category. Now it is no longer insist on stamping its name on every product, fighting for market share on maintaining popular but money-losing products. The priority now is profitability. This represents a major cultural shift at Sony, according to a senior executive who agreed to discuss company strategy on the condition that his name would be withheld. He agreed, and other company executives declined to talk about the company on the record. In the past, when faced with heavy competition, Sony would lower prices to maintain market share even at the expense of profit margins. Now its chief focus is to boost the bottom line, even if it means retrenching in some markets, the executive said. Toward that end, Sony sold off its Via personal computer business last year and split off its TV division into a wholly owned subsidiary. It laid off more than a third of the staff at corporate headquarters in Tokyo and trimmed its worldwide sales staff by. Lionel Messi faces trial over 30 crore tax fraud. He maybe have created history on the football field after winning a treble with Barcelona, but off-field, Lionel Messi is facing trial over an alleged £4.1 million. The football star's lawyer appealed against the appearing in the court, but it was turned down by a Barcelona court. According to a report in El País, the court said that there was not enough evidence that the Barcelona star has benefited from a network of companies that has helped him to skirt the laws of the Spanish tax agency. It was deemed as tax fraud on footballer's part, even though he may not have been completely aware of it. However, these allegations first surfaced back in 2007 to 2009, when Messi and his father George, who is also his agent, were accused of evading tax obligations in Spain by using companies in Belize and Uruguay to sell the image rights of the player. Messi previously have repeatedly stated that neither him or his father have ever committed any tax infringements, and have always been upright with their tax payments. Cleveland's relentless defense held Golden State to 39% shooting and made it a forgettable night for regular season MVP Stephen Curry. Curry had just 19 points on 5 for 23 shooting, but he caped the home team's comeback with a game-tying layup with 8 seconds left in regulation that forced overtime. Game 3 is on Tuesday in Cleveland. The opening 2 games have both gone to overtime, a first for the NBA Finals. German tennis legend Boris Becker to seek British citizenship. Former German tennis ace Boris Becker has reportedly said he will apply for British citizenship after spending much of his time in Wimbledon since his retirement. Becker currently resides at Wimbledon in England, even though he has a house in Germany. He is at present the coach of world number 1 tennis player Serbian Novak Djokovic. Djokovic lost in the final of the French Open, going down to number 4 Swiss Stanislas Wawrinka, reports BBC.com. The 47-year-old German will coach Djokovic at Wimbledon again this season, with the Serbian looking to equal his coach's record of 3 wins at the All England Club. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Nafisa Noman with your top stories. Obama faces big month, trade Iran healthcare. Suicide bomb targets ancient Egyptian temple. Madagascar president denounces attempt to impeach him in constitutional coup. And New York prison break convicts on the run for days face high odds for capture. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.